We're at Unicorn Stadium in New Braunfels, Texas, where we're going to focus on the career of one of the all-time great coaches in Texas high school football history. Jim Streety, both here at New Braunfels and at San Antonio, Madison, fifth on the all-time victories list for the entire history of Texas high school football. And we'll try to answer, Jim Streety, is he a better coach or a better man? "47 years coaching, 40 years as a head coach, 343 wins. I think you retired as the fourth all-time winningest coach in high school football history in Texas. You're in the High School Coaches Association Hall of Honor. You're in the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame. You're in the San Antonio Sports Hall of Fame. You're respected by your peers. You were elected as a director. You were elected as a High School Coaches Association president. You're on their foundation board. I mean, anybody who heard that or knew that would know here's a guy that was at the top of his profession for a long time. But they may not know all the backstory. Smiley, Texas.
Well, that's a story in itself, Larry, because growing up in the country, in a small town, was a pretty unique experience, and one that I wouldn't trade anything for. Our family, we had a little farm, and we raised everything that had either 2 or 4 legs, from chickens to turkeys to cows to pigs, and we learned how to work, to take care of our chores. But at the same time, as you know, growing up in a small town, everything centered around the school. Everything in the school centered around the sports. And the guys that did sports, which were most of us, we just went from one season to the next. We played football, then we played basketball, then we ran track, we played baseball in the summertime. And it was just a great upbringing, and a place where I learned to work hard and respect those that had authority.
From there, go to San Marcos, Southwest Texas State University.
I did, and I started out there as an accounting major, and I'm not sure why. I think way back then you took those aptitude tests, and they told you, pretty much what you needed to be. But at any rate, after about 3 semesters, my heart finally convinced me that I needed to do what I had wanted to do since way back in the 8th grade, when I thought I wanted to be a coach. And so I flipped over to education, and finished in education, and then went to grad school for a year as a GA there in the department, and then got lucky because in 1967, right after I had gotten married, and my wife was still going to college. She was still in school. She was a little younger than me. And anyway, I got lucky and got a junior high coaching job. A guy named Milton Jowers, who was the football coach at Southwest Texas and athletic director, hooked me up with a junior high coaching job in San Marcos, and I was able to stay there. And for 3 years while Janie finished school. And it was just like every job I ever had. I thought it was the greatest job in the world. I loved it. I thought I would never leave. And then, of course, in 1970, I had an opportunity, and I wanted to move up. I knew I wanted to move up. And that year in 1970, I had a chance to move to San Marcos High School as a freshman coach, but I had the chance to come to New Braunfels as a JV coach. So we came to New Braunfels.
Now, who was the head coach at New Braunfels? Who hired you here?
Luke Thomas, a guy named Luke Thomas, and he was here. And basically, he was ready to get into administration. Luke had been coaching for a while, and he wanted to be in administration, and I knew that. but we also weren't very good, which I think probably enhanced his move into administration.
Yeah.
We weren't very good, but anyway, we were here 2 years, and he left, and well, heck yeah. So I just applied for the job. I had been the first year I was a JV coach, and then the second year I was a varsity secondary coach, and so I applied for the job, and luckily they didn't give it to me because it was a terrible job. And anyway, and I didn't know what I was doing, or wouldn't have known. But they hired a guy named Bobby Gill, who had some college coaching experience, had some really fresh ideas, and he came in. And of course, I thought I was gone. I thought we would be on our way out of town.
Yep.
Because I applied for the job, didn't get it, you know. But anyway, he comes in, and it's really kind of late, and I'm sure he probably tried to hire some guys, but it was in June or late in June when all this happened. Well, lo and behold, we hit it off, and I became the defensive coordinator. And he was a great guy, a lot of fun to work with, and so I was good with that, and we got a little better. We started getting better, and
this was when? Now?
In 1972, 73.
Coach, so that was 2 years with Coach Gill.
Yeah. And then in the spring of 1974, we had a winning record in 73 for the first time in New Braunfels in a long time. We had a good group of seniors, had a winning record. Anyway, he left. Well, I applied for the job again. Well, they couldn't turn me down 2 times in a row, so they felt sorry for me and gave me the job in the spring of 1974. And I became the head coach, and ended up having to hire some guys. I hired a bunch of young guys, and we started having fun, and pretty soon we started winning.
I do know that everybody was excited about Coach Streety being the head coach. You know, he'd been the secondary coach there and under Bobby Gill, and so there was, you know, anytime you get a new coach in, there was a lot of expectations and excitement and that sort of thing. And I knew from I had been around him for about a year before that, because I kind of helped out with some scouting and stuff. I knew what kind of man he was. I also knew a number of the assistant coaches like Pete Fredenberg and Jerry Major and Cliff Mitchell, some of those guys, you know. And so I felt like we were going to be able to get some things done.
Well, we were freshmen at the time when that happened, and then, but of course, that's a great program that we had there. And it started in junior high, and then it just transitioned all the way through high school. But you know, we knew Coach Streety, and you know, he was just the perfect fit for us.
From that, you know, you go on a memorable 17-year run.
Yep.
As a head coach. Become the team of the 1980s, as voted on by whoever votes on those kinds of things.
I think it was Texas Sports Writers Association.
Yeah. And you were okay with that.
I was okay. I liked it.
Yeah. Unprecedented success. Something they'd never done before. And but you know, every program that's had a long, sustained run, there's a moment. You know, there's a season. There's a moment that kicks it off. You know, everything's gotten in from there. You know, winning becomes so ingrained that the new guys don't even know how this whole thing got started. What started it for New Braunfels?
Well, it was without a doubt the team of 1976, because we did have a good group of guys that we had been grooming in 74 and 75, and we were very, very optimistic going into the 1976 season. And we did have a good football team. And the 9th game of the season, we played the Cuero Gobblers right here at Unicorn Stadium.
Now, I interrupt you here. They were on a little bit of a run.
Yeah, they
had
won
won 2 state championships.
Right.
The 3rd year they go to the final. I think they were 44-1 the last 3 years.
They were. They had gone 44-0, and then they lost the state finals game.
And they're 8-0 coming into this game.
And they're 8-0 in 76, and we have a big game here, and we were lucky, and we played well, had a huge crowd here, and we were able to beat Coach Buster Gilbert and the Cuero Gobblers just as bad as we could. We beat them 14-7.
Well, we were going against a legendary coach too, and that was Coach Gilbert, who had the Cueros then. And so we knew about them, and we watched the film, and we saw how fast they were, and how strong they were, and how tough they were. But Coach had us believing that we were better than them.
Yeah.
7-7 late in the game. Cold, wet.
Oh, yeah.
Now you
Yeah.
did something there that's become part of lore here in New Braunfels. What did you do at halftime?
Well, it was wet and muddy, and in 1976, the playoffs, the whole
Oh, yeah.
season, but the whole playoffs, it was cold and wet every game. Well, at halftime, we go in and we change uniforms, and we had a fresh set of uniforms. That was our halftime adjustment.
Oh,
you know,
man.
I gave them the best
Yeah.
speech I could have. Said, y'all get those muddy
Change.
uniforms off, put some clean ones on.
Coach just, I think Rudy was of course Rudy was our field house guy, and he had all uniforms, clean uniforms laid out. It was really our practice jerseys, our practice stuff, but they were clean. So we changed. And at halftime, we came out in clean uniforms. We got so fired up, the crowd goes, wow. And then you can just see those guys over there at Cuero going, and they're like, man. And that really, you know, it's a mental game. And so, you know, when Coach did that, he got us fired up, made them kind of go, wow. And then that's a great mind game. That was a great move on Streety's part.
But now there's some people here in New Braunfels that claim that's what did it. We got them dry uniforms. Cuero had the wet uniforms, and Coach Streety done pulled one over on Coach Gilbert and won the game. But you know, you mentioned back in that era too, 1976. One team wins the district,
Right.
and one team goes to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So this was not, well,
Yeah.
you know, we win the district championship, and if not, you know, we'll still get in the playoffs. This was win or go home.
Exactly. The Cuero, a really good Cuero team, ended up staying at home. But anyway, we won the district and had a nice little playoff run there. Went to the quarterfinals, beat a Dickinson team, I guess, in the second or third round that had Donnie Little, who
Right.
ended up being quarterback at the University of Texas.
Right.
We beat them, and then the next year, that was when Donnie Little was a junior. Next year, they went 15-0, won state
Won the whole
championship.
thing.
When we come back, I go into the film room with Coach Streety, and we'll break down the play that took them to one of the program's most memorable playoff wins.
You're going to see us, Coach, go from some old school football. By that I mean 3 yards in a cloud of mud, which was in this game.
Then we'll talk about his decision to leave his success at New Braunfels and begin his tenure at San Antonio's James Madison High School, where he'll find many successes and also what could be his darkest moment as a head coach.
This was in the playoffs, and it was a tough time, and it was certainly a time where I didn't know if I could make it.
How does a guy like you even get a girl?
I know what's coming. I know what's coming. Well,
I can tell you. He went into accounting. I thought he was really going to make a lot of money.
You didn't necessarily sign on to be a football coach, is why.
No, I didn't know that.
she thought I was going to be a CPA.
And you always talk about that 76 team. Okay, what a great year that was. Of course, you beat Dickinson second round. Let's look at the game winner, Dickinson. You got that? Got that on tape?
We do.
Let's
we do.
look at it.
Of course, you're going to see us, Coach, go from some old school football. By that I mean 3 yards in a cloud of mud, which was in this game,
Yeah.
But there were no artificial turf fields
Nope.
at that time. Of course, this is a December game, so
Now is that quarterback up under center?
he's actually taking a snap. He really is.
Well, the guys today wouldn't really know. This
No.
is kind of a history
Yeah,
lesson
you're
for
gonna
them
see
boys.
that on the
Yeah.
next clips.
Yeah.
But we go from old school to new school here pretty quickly on these clips. But this is a December game. Obviously, no
Muddy.
turf. The grass is dead. The field is muddy, and we we're a downhill run the football team, and because we've got some pretty good offensive linemen up. Terry Tausch played at the University of Texas and then played in the NFL for 11 years. Steve Spicer played at Rice University. Our left tackle played at Tech. This wingback that's going to score the game-winning touchdown here played at Tech as well. But we're gonna run an ISO up in here.
That's your number one play, normally?
It's one of our number one plays. We're going to run the ISO up in here.
Yeah.
And then we're going to bring this wingback around and hand him the ball, and he's going to get across the goal line.
Wing
right
reverse.
there.
You going to pull some guards?
We're going to pull some guards here, and this guy, Tausch, is going to kind of clean up everybody. This first guard is going to come around, and he's going to log this defensive end right here. And then the second guard is going to come around, and he's going to lead the parade into the end zone. If I can figure this out. Here we go. Let's see what it looks like.
I'll let it run through here. Oh,
Yeah.
look at that guard.
Yeah.
Run that back. Can you run that back?
I can run that back. We're going to run it
Well,
again.
Tausch liked to kill the defensive end to
Well,
start with.
that's
up
what
there.
he was good at. You know,
The thing
that's
is-
coach. I coached the tight ends.
You
at
must
the time.
have, because he liked to kill, and that lead guard got his, and then he annihilated that linebacker.
But of course,
Chapin got all the publicity.
Yeah.
All he did was really run
Yeah.
about 10 yards there, and nobody even touched him.
But anyway, that was one of our really go-to plays. Of course, we didn't have but about 3 or 4 plays. We had the ISO, the fullback belly, the toss sweep, and then the
Reverse off the ISO.
Yeah, the reverse off the ISO and sprint out pass and a 3-step. And our play list was pretty sharp.
Well, that's a good football team you beat right there.
Yeah,
They
it
had Donnie
was.
Little
Their
went on to
quarterback
University of
was
Texas. and-
Donnie Little,
Yeah.
who played at the University of Texas. And the Donnie Little was a junior this year, and the next year those guys went 15-0 and won state
Teddy
championship.
Gray coaching.
Teddy Gray coaching them, and this was obviously a huge win for us, which came about 3 weeks after that
Cuero win.
big Cuero.
You could have been mayor of New Braunfels if they'd have had
Well,
election right there.
I could have been, but
Yeah,
then
a little bit of a demotion.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
then we played the next week. We played Gregory Portland, and I'm not sure I would have won the mayor election that week.
Well, Ray Akins won the mayor of Gregory, Texas. so-
Ray Akins won it that week.
I'm guessing the 76 team, the euphoria around that
Yeah.
team, the aura, the impact that it had on the city, the impact that it had on the school, the athletic program, and of course, a launching point for what's going to happen now the next decade or so.
Yeah.
At the time, we didn't think that much about it. We were just coaching and, we're trying to win games. And our kids got to where, they expected to win. There were kids that grew up in elementary school that saw the Unicorns winning and their success and stuff. And we might have teams that we didn't feel were quite as talented, but they exceeded expectations because they expected to win.
You stayed a long time at New Braunfels. Why did you stay 17 years the head coach and spurn some other opportunities?
Well, mainly because of my family.
Right.
Because our kids were starting to grow up, and because this was a pretty good place. I mean,
You bet.
we were being successful, and we had a chance to continue to be successful. Our kids were growing up, and everything that I looked at as far as opportunities to move, it just I didn't see it being equal to what we had here, and that and the fact that my wife told me that I could go ahead and move if I wanted to, but she and the kids would be staying here.
Be a single man at the new place, yeah.
So I turned down a couple of things, and which may or may not have been good, but
Well, I think the New Braunfels people will be glad
Yeah.
maybe that you
But
didn't. So.
along about that time, I really became a real firm believer, and I think you will probably identify with this as well. If you're in a good place and that you like, and they like you, and you got a reasonable chance to be successful, why do you pick up and leave that? And so
You can't necessarily recreate the magic somewhere else. You can, but
Maybe.
you know, what about those guys in the next office?
Right.
Are they coming with you?
Yeah.
Can you hire staff on par with that?
Mm-hmm.
Administrative support, team support. But then in 1990, 17 successful years as head coach, you leave and go to Madison. You know, why Madison and not others before? What was different about that opportunity?
Well, our son was already out of school. He was
Right.
already in college, and our daughter was getting ready to get out. And I had become friends with Jerry Comalander, who was the athletic director there in Northeast. And you know, for some reason I thought if I was ever, I was still in my 40s at the time, and I thought, well, you know, if I'm ever going to and I knew I was going to coach. Wherever I was, I knew I was going to coach. And I actually, at that point, I really didn't see myself coaching here another 15 years or so.
Right.
And so I said, you know what, I'm going to try this. And so, you know, I took that job and
Immediate success.
Yeah.
I mean, the first two
Yeah.
teams go to the quarterfinals.
Right.
Yeah. How do you pull that off? How do you go in there and capture their attention and have that kind of success right off the bat?
Well, Madison had a little bit of success the year or two before we went there, and they had a good run of kids. But also, I went there with the understanding that I was going to be able to take some guys with me, which I ended up taking guys with me, and they pretty much gave us what we needed.
Okay.
And we had a great principal at the time, that B. Devlin, who was a huge football fan, and she made it work for us.
And he called and offered me a job to come down and join his staff at that time, and that's where it all started.
Well, in college I played with Ron Ritterman, who was the quarterback for Southwest Texas, and then he got a job at Madison, and then he let me know about a position open there, and then that's how we got started there, and got the Madison days going.
23 years, you're head coach here. Didn't look like this though.
Not quite. We had a few grass burrs and a lot of clover out there a few times, if I recall.
Yeah, and a little bit more around the field than there was, huh?
Yeah. When we came in here, there was a barbed wire fence over there on the other side of that top field,
Yeah.
and there was crops growing out there, and
Yeah.
every now and then you might see a deer or coyote or something out there.
Yeah.
And then to
Yeah.
the back here where our ag facility is, there's nothing back there either. This was pretty much as far as things went out here, the football
What
field.
made Madison such a special place? You stayed 23 years.
Well, the community. This is pretty much a blue collar community. Great kids that really don't mind working,
Right.
and they had some success back in the 80s, and
Right.
then, you know, kind of fell on hard times a little bit. But and we had a great mix of kids. We just I always like to say that this was the real world here.
I was fortunate. My parents decided very young that I was going to grow up with a set of kids, stay with the same set of kids through high school. So whenever I was enrolled at Woodstone Elementary School, I knew Coach Streety was going to be my head coach. So as I got to grow up and go to the games as a young kid, always knew who he was, always saw the teams, and it just became a habit of winning. And you didn't understand how great he was until he left. You know, we won since I was 5 years old. You know, it was district championships, and that was what Madison High School was supposed to do, and it was always led by Coach Streety.
Well, now apparently you won some games here, because looking over here, and it's Jim Streety Field now. How's that feel?
I don't know. I thought they did that after you were dead and gone.
Well, doesn't look like rigor mortis has set in just yet, so
No,
that's a good deal.
they honored me by naming the field. I guess it was the year after I left and went to New Braunfels as AD. But we had a great run. My goodness, we had a great run there.
Can't name it after everybody, so I guess the guy at the top of the stationery
and
is
those
one.
last 3 or 4 years were really really special years. And again, I think it was just, well, at that point it was because of expectations. Because once we got rolling, it was pretty much the expectation that not only were we going to be a playoff team, that we were going to have a run in the playoffs. And
now, speaking of run of the playoffs, now a couple of your players, Askew and Ehrlich, they kind of referenced some memorable games. Had one in the Dome against those Ranger boys.
Yeah, and believe it or not, I didn't put them up to that, Coach Hill.
Well, I sure didn't.
Man, I'd take it to my sophomore year against Smithson Valley. I think everybody will talk about that game. It was in the state quarterfinals, down a few touchdowns, and was able to rally back and have a big win and kind of go, not solidify his career, but that just showed the kind of coach he was and what he was able to accomplish.
So this next one here,
I don't know why is this in here?
Well, you put it in there.
I thought we were friends. We had a little couple touchdown lead on you, right?
Well,
now it's down to one touchdown.
Luckily, part of the crowd left, and we were able to. But this is late in the game in the quarterfinals in 2007 in the Alamo Dome, and we notice we don't have a guy taking the snap under center there.
No, this looks different than the old Dixon play.
But we're in trips. And this guy right here is a guy named Nate Askew, who's about 6'4", who played at A&M and then played in the NFL 3 or 4 years. And what we like to do is when we got in trips, obviously release these guys up the field, and then release our tight end and try to get him in front of the safety, to try to hold the safety so that we could isolate this guy one-on-one with a corner, and hopefully he might have a physical advantage, which most of the time you do, but it looked something like this.
I remember how it looked.
Anyway, it was a nice play, and after the formation and the play call, I can't say that there was a whole lot of coaching went on here.
Sends it to overtime.
Yeah, but we did
right there.
Looked
like a little push off. You think it's push off?
Well, that's a coaching technique that sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But this day,
this old boy here high fiving, he don't think it's a push off.
It worked.
Yeah.
But
go to overtime and win it.
We'll get that up here one more time, and look at it again, and see what the concept is. Of course, to try to get the safety. Of course, this is a corner, this is a safety, and the other safety, we got to occupy that other safety with this guy right here.
And if we double over here, you're going to try to get it to the tight end down the middle.
Absolutely.
In hindsight, we should have doubled over here.
Hindsight is always 20/20, Coach. Let me get that off of there, and we'll run it one more time, and then that'll be it.
I hope so.
But I was coaching the wide receivers in this game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was you recall, that was a great crowd there. We were as we had talked earlier, we were a part of a doubleheader, and probably had 20,000 people there, and an exciting ball game. And we got hot at the end, mainly because of those two guys. Yeah. And the outcome was favorable for us that day. But that was a memorable game. But we had others too. We had several.
We got after it a few times in the Dome and elsewhere.
Yeah.
To that end, who were you guys? You coached for 40 years, so there were head coaches that came and went, and some stayed through there. I mean, who were your cronies? Who are the guys that you remember?
Well, as I said earlier, stability in staff, I think, is one of the keys to anybody's success, and you've experienced that as well. But when we got started there in New Braunfels, I had a real solid group. Pete Fredenberg was with us for a number of years, and we sort of got a little defensive edge established, and then Tim Kingsbury was with me for 20 years and at New Braunfels and here at Madison, and really we were together for a long time, as well as others. But then coming on here to Madison, Glenn Mango came in here the second year we were here, and has been with me off and on ever since then. So I don't know how many. Well, I've only hired him 4 times.
I know it. Yeah.
So and then of course Ron Ritterman was with us for a long time. Guys like Greg Porter, Bill McCluskey, Keith Randall, just Blaine Peterson, who's the head coach here at Madison now.
Right, got your old job.
We just had we had a lot of fun.
I think almost 95%, I would say. Spent most of my career with him. Just how he interacts with kids, how he interacts with parents and administration. Never gets too wound up about too many things, but always takes time to reflect on what's going on and then make a decision from there. So those are some very good qualities that I try to emulate.
Coach Streety was always good about, the way he treated kids, and everybody on the staff was the same way. We would coach them hard, but then we'd hug them and tell them we loved them, and we'd go on about it.
There's a bunch of moments that make them Streety moments, but I would say overall it's just when things were really good, he was a great role model of how to handle success and how to deflect the credit to other people. But he also was just as good as a leader when times weren't good. After you've lost a game or two, or something negative happened in the program, there wasn't a better role model or leader than Jim Streety.
Most memorable moments, maybe games at Madison, whether it's a turning point game or just a big game, or what were some of the great ones there?
Golly, there were several. I can tell you, we had some quarterfinal games there that were just huge. The last year we were there, we had a quarterfinal game with Converse Judson that I can't remember the score. I think it might have been 31-27. Again, another one of those games. We just beat them as bad as we could.
Yeah.
And
stopped them on about the 1 inch line.
About the 1 inch line at the end of the game. Just an unbelievable finish to that game. And a lot of excitement, and of course the next week in the semifinals, a game that we led up until the final minute, and lost in the last minute to a really good Pearland team. That's a memorable game, a bad memory, but still a memorable game. This Cody Ennis is our quarterback here, and he's a big, strong guy that ended up playing H-back at Abilene Christian, and he's throwing to one of our wide receivers that just was unbelievable athlete, Byron Daniels, who made a bunch of huge plays for us.
Remember that.
I'm not going to draw any lines, but you can see that he made an unbelievable catch.
Now that was your last football game.
That was
that's
the last
now
football game I coached.
You thought when he makes this catch right here, you can pause that. Pause that if you can. Okay, now right there, I thought we were going to go. This is not my last football game. This is our next to last football game.
This was in 2013.
Semifinal game.
Semifinals, and we thought.
How much time when he catches that?
About
15,
a
18?
minute.
Yeah.
No, there was about a minute or a minute 15 left in that game, and we thought we were going to get to go to Jerry World the next week and play until we kicked off. And luckily, we were able to cut that next play out of there because their return guy took it back the length of a football field plus whatever was left to the end zone. I'm not even sure we touched him. I was standing real close to him on the sideline, and I was tempted to stick my foot out and trip him, but it was a real.
So you went from the
heartbreaker
penthouse to the outhouse in a span of about 2 plays.
In about 2 plays, because that had been a tremendous back and forth football game at the Waco ISD Stadium. Great crowd, Saturday afternoon, cold as all get outs, but it was not meant to be.
A guy at the pinnacle of his career. I mean, obviously at the top of his game. A few weeks later, over the Christmas break, begins a process that finally, after all these years, decide to step away. You take the athletic director's job here at New Braunfels. Had similar opportunities either to retire or maybe step into athletic administration. And like we said earlier, why then? Why that opportunity as opposed to others before that?
When Icon continues, Coach Streety will talk about his decision to walk away from coaching and return to New Braunfels in a different role. And later, Coach Streety revisits a time in his career that tested him more than any opponent ever could. Icon continues right after this.
You know, those, as we've all said, those big games, those big wins, the losses that you have, they don't mean anything compared to all the relationships that you have with coaches, their families, former players. Those are the lasting memories.
And the memories of all of us traveling together.
Yeah. Going to
with the kids.
Playoff games. Yeah.
Those are great memories.
Take the athletic director's job here at New Braunfels. Had similar opportunities either to retire or maybe step into athletic administration. And like we said earlier, why then? Why that opportunity as opposed to others before that?
Yeah. Again, I had already developed the philosophy that I was never going to say, I'm going to go one more year, or I'm going to go 2 more years. I was going to go till I quit, and whatever that was. And I certainly had no intention of quitting because we had some really key players coming back off of that 13 team. We thought we were going to be pretty good again. And we were just getting into our boot camp there about the middle of January there in 2014 when I got a phone call from our superintendent here in New Braunfels, and Coach Caniford had resigned here, and for some reason he called and just to see if I might have any interest in coming back here, and I said, well, probably not, because I think I have a really good coaching job and I'm happy, you know, I don't know how much longer I'm going to coach, but I'm planning to be back here next year. So, you know, I did say, if I were to change jobs, it wouldn't be to coach, because if I do anything, if I change jobs, I want to slow down just a little bit, maybe, and. Because he was talking about the athletic director coaching job position. So anyway, a few days later he calls back and he said, well, you know, we've been talking about splitting the coaching and the AD job up. Our board has talked about that in the past, which I know they had because they had talked to me in the past about it, and I wasn't ready to quit coaching at that time. So we talked some more, and my daughter and her family, grandkids, had moved here from Austin a year or so before that.
Right.
And those guys were starting to get up and get involved in things around school. And I'd find myself on Saturdays and Sundays during football season running back and forth from Madison, where we were working, obviously, to events here and then go back. And anyway, after I met with the superintendent a couple of times, and we agreed on some things, and finally, you know, I confided in a couple of people, And of course, my wife Janie has always supported me in whatever I wanted to do. But I could tell that she was kind of liking the idea of me being back here and being around the kids a little more, and maybe being at home a little bit more. And then I actually talked to a couple of other people that told me the same thing, that you know, if that's what the deal is, you probably need to do that. Because I was 70 years old at the time too, and so that's how it all went down. And lo and behold, I said, hey, I'm in. And
well, now let me ask you this. Now, I think, you know, as when you get to that kind of decision, you know, life-changing decision. I'm gonna step away from something I've been doing for 43 years, and the head coach, I guess, what did we say, 40? 47 total, and 40 as a head coach. Still pulling the actual trigger. How many times did you go to the cliff and step back and step? And how many? How emotional was that?
Yeah, it was. It just ate me up. And the superintendent here was so great in the way we needed to time it out, because it was National Signing Date there, that first week in February, and Braunfels wanted to announce something. We had agreed that this was going to happen, but they wanted to announce something, but I didn't want to pull anything away from my kids at Madison getting the kind of recognition they needed to get on signing day, because I had 3 or 4 guys sign some level of scholarship that year. And so we agreed that National Signing Date was on Tuesday, say, and then we were going to get that behind it, and those guys were going to get their recognition, and then the next day I was going to walk in there and tell the team I'm done.
Now tell me about that. How'd that go? You got to step in there and tell them now. You're all the way to the cliff now. You got to look at them.
I did, and I think it had been pretty quiet. I know I don't think many people really knew what was going to happen, but when we went through off season that day and called the guys up just like we always do, and you know, I told them that. I would never go anywhere else to coach, that they were the greatest guys in the world, the greatest guys to coach, but I was going to step away from coaching and come here as athletic director, and I turned around and walked out because I couldn't face them anymore.
Oh, you thought you might change your mind if you stayed in there a little bit longer. No, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. So,
but anyway, and you know, it happened just like that, and I started, that was, say, on a Wednesday, I started here the next Monday.
Right. Coach Streety, people who don't know you personally wouldn't necessarily know this, but you're a man of faith. How has that influenced this career and this journey?
Well, first of all, you know, I was brought up in a Christian home by Christian parents, and there was only one place where we were going to be: Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I think that set a foundation for me, and I've been able to maintain that, and I have not been hesitant to maintain that faith with my teams and show that to our teams. You know, in today's world, that's not necessarily a popular thing at school, or popular is probably not the right word, but you're not encouraged to do that. But I just I let our kids know that what my relationship with God was and is, and I continue to, and I'm not changing. And as I said, I've been too blessed not to think any other way. I mean, to think any other way. My goodness, I've just been so blessed. And it comes from somewhere. It didn't all just come because of me.
Not just your good looks and brains.
No.
Yeah, I got you.
Not at all.
Well, you know, I think people from the outside may think a man whose career has been so successful, there couldn't have been just a whole lot of tough times. We all know that that's not ever true in any case, but I'm guessing for Jim Streety, the David Edwards ordeal had to be your toughest stretch.
Yeah, and you know, Larry, as coaches, one of the hardest things about coaching is when kids have injuries, because it's hard on we think it's hard on us, but it's really hard on the kids. It's hard on their teammates. It's hard on their families, particularly if it's one of your better players and the injury takes them out for the season or
right.
period of time.
Makes it tougher on the team to win.
When you have a catastrophic injury like we had with David, it rocks your soul. I'll tell you for sure. And those were some dark moments for me. And this was in the playoffs, and it was a tough time, and it was certainly a time where I didn't know if I could make it. And you talk about your faith. That's the only thing that got me through that. And of course, he was badly injured and became a quadriplegic and suffered for several years before he passed away. Yeah. But during that time, I came to realize that I could get that done because of my faith and a lot of encouragement and a lot of support from other people, including yourself and many others. But at the same time, I came to realize the importance of being a leader. If I was the leader of that program, then I had to be the leader for not only our team and our coaches, but for his family. I had to be the leader for his family, and as a result of that, I got very, very close to his family, and there were often times when I would be down in the dumps, and his family would lift me up because they were a family of faith as well. And it was a life-changing experience because I didn't know if I was going to go on.
You know, that's probably the moment that defines Jim Streety for me as a football coach and just as a great man. That was probably the worst moment of all of our coaching careers. Anybody that was involved at that time. I've been doing this 30 years now, and today is the one day that it's my one day I've had it that's bad in coaching. But the credit again goes to Coach Streety, because from the second it happened, he went into head coach mode and just being a great person and kept everything under control. He kept everybody calm. He said the right things to the family. He said the right things to the opponents. He said the right things to our players and our coaches and our community. And it was just a great, strong person to get us through that time, because it was devastating. And I'm not sure there's probably more than a handful of head coaches in the state of Texas that would have handled it the way he did. And to this day, I still say, I don't want to say it was a shining moment, but it was, because the way he stood for what he believed in and his faith, it made a miserable, terrible time manageable for everybody.
If we get a young coach watches this episode, and he from it determines, I want to be the next generation's Jim Streety. I want to be that. What advice would you give him?
Have a real fast running back if you can.
Stick in the end zone a few times. More than the other team, right?
Yeah. No. Work hard.
Yes,
work
sir.
hard, number one, and don't be afraid to stick your neck out every now and then. But develop a philosophy. Maybe that's not the right word, but develop something that you believe in, something that you're going to put the foundation of your team on, whether it be X's and O's, or part of it's going to be X's and O's, but what you expect out of your staff, what you expect out of your players, what you expect out of yourself, and then have some good players, and you'll have a chance.
Well, I would think your track record, your legacy would indicate that's good advice.
Because he knows so many people and had great rapport with the other coaches, the other head coaches. So I'd say he's the guy in the middle of the field that's talking to the opposing coach, and they're probably talking about anything but football.
It's the way he treated people, and you know, his actions, everyday actions, or his living faith. You know, he's showing it every day, whether he's volunteering for Habitat for Humanity. I mean, he's out there doing stuff. He's always, anything, the food drive, that's always important for him to give back, and those type of things that he knows that he's been gifted with some treasures, I guess to say, and he's always willing to find a way to give back.
It's amazing how many people know who he is. And I was texting Cliff Kingsbury a couple days ago because I saw his dad was on the roster. And I said, hey, I'm going to be with your dad doing this interview. And his response is, you know, he just selected the #1 pick in the draft. He took a debatable Kyler Murray pick. You know, everyone's scrutinizing it. And his response is, Streety is the GOAT. And that was just amazing. That, you know, Cliff and I have never met him. Him and I have texted back and forth because of what I do now. But for him to take the time, and that's his first response within 30 seconds, Streety is the GOAT, you know, that it just shows how far his reach is and how much he touched other people's lives.
Oh, you know, it was just a blessing to be under Coach Streety and his staff. I mean, we were a team of strong 33 players, and to this day, I can call any one of my 33 players. A few of them are no longer with us, but the ones that are here, I could call them right now and say, hey man, I need your help. They'd be there. And so that team spirit carried on into today. You know, I got 33 brothers right there.
After I left Madison, I talked to Streety and still continue to have a relationship with him. And to this day, he'll text me, he'll call me to see how I'm doing and see how life is. Don't even talk about football, won't even bring ball up. Just want to know how I'm doing as a person. Am I healthy? Is my family good? Things like that. So I played for a lot of coaches, and I don't have communication with them after I'm gone. Some of them I do. But Streety was just one of those guys that I continue to have communication with, and that just shows the kind of person he was and the character he had.
Big thanks to Coach Jim Streety for being with us and sharing memories of his fabulous, legendary high school coaching career. The question still remains, is he a better man? Is he a better coach? Still a tough call to make. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.